Hey everybody, Lieutenant Joe here for Hope is Not a Tactic, the school safety and security show. Let's thank our sponsors, Blue 360 Media, RiotTint.com, and MedicalEssentialDiagnostics.com. All awesome supporters of school safety and everything that we do to be safe and secure. And so I want to talk today for the concept of penetration testing. Now, penetration testing is something that you might do as an administrator in a building, as the superintendent. If you're a staff member, you might recommend this to your leadership. Penetration testing is where we take somebody who looks student age or adult, and we see if they can get into our buildings without having their ID, without being known to the staff. See if they can knock on a door and a student lets them in. See if they can let us have a security person let them in. See if they can get a student to let them in the door, right? So when I do threat assessments, one of the things we highly recommend to all of our schools is that they allow us to do a penetration test. Now, when we do this, we always do it with the superintendent's knowledge and with either the building administrator by our side or the school security person so that there's a school representative with us. We're not just sending people willy-nilly into a building to scare everybody. So what we did recently, very large school district, and they were complaining that they had people get in their building. Students let other students in, students let adults in, and it was just, it's not a safety and secure practice to do that. So what we did is we took a young lady from my office. She was 28 years old. She looks 16, especially when you put her in a hoodie and a backpack. Me, the director of security, and this young woman went to the high school. Classes were started. It was probably 2 hours into the day. And we sent this young lady up to the side door, an out of the way door, not a regular entry door. And we told her to knock on the door and see if a student would let her in. If it was a teacher, she should say that she forgot her ID at home, that her mother took her to the doctor and just dropped her off, and she needs to get in and see what happens, right? So we did this. And the first door we went up to was a side door. Like I said, it wasn't a regular entrance of the school. And this young lady went up, and we videotaped this so that we would see what happens. She went up and she knocked on the door. Obviously, she saw somebody, and a minute later, we saw the door open, and out stepped an adult teacher and having a conversation with this young lady. And then we saw her, yeah, come on in. And the young lady went in, went through the building, came out the front door, and came back to us. She said, what happened? She says, I told her I didn't have my ID. So she didn't say, well, what classes you're in, what, nothing. She just let her in the door. Come on in, right? A little while later, we did the test again at a different door. And she went up to the door, and a security guard spoke to her at the door, and the security guard let her in. And she went in, and the instructions that I gave her was that if it was an adult or a teacher or administrator or security person, that if they let her in, she should then take off running, stop after about 25, 30 feet to look suspicious, and then run out the door. See what happens. Well, the security officer let her in, and we're watching. Now, the director of security was with me, and he had smoke coming out of his ears, as you can imagine. And this girl comes running out the door, takes off, and goes running towards the parking lot. It looked very suspicious. She had no ID. She was let in. She ran into the school, then she turned around and ran. And all the security guard did was close the door and walk away. Never reported it, never said a word. So the director of security said, I'll be back in a few minutes. And he went in and had some conversation with the security officer. Later in the day, I dressed up in a hoodie, a t-shirt, and I went up to a side door and I banged on the door, and there were some students there, and they looked at me and they were like, you have to go around the front, which was great. The kids saw me. They didn't know who I was. They told me go around the front. I went out to my car a little while later and I changed into a shirt, tie, and a sport coat. And I went up to another side door and knocked on the door, and the students saw me. They let me in, not just once, not twice, but 3 times. So the clothing I was wearing made a difference to them because we ended up finding those students and saying, listen, you're not in trouble, but why'd you let this guy in? Oh, he looked like he was a teacher or somebody. He was an adult, right? In a suit and tie. We found the kid that wouldn't let me in. I said, why don't you let him in? He goes, well, you looked a little sus, man. You looked a little suspicious. They didn't know who I was because I was dressed down, jeans, t-shirt, right? Jacket, not looking professional. So doing a penetration test is very important for you to see what your people are going to do. Another example of a dangerous place is your deliveries, how things get delivered and who can get in your doors then. So I had a principal at a big school district. They announced I'd be doing an assessment and I'd be around the schools and this and that. And this principal came up to me and he was a little arrogant and he says, you do whatever you want, Lieutenant. My schools are locked up tight. You'll never get in my schools. I'm like, okay. So I do a thing called Lieutenant Joe's Coffee Walk. First thing in the morning, before even the custodians get there, I walk around looking for open doors and windows and see if I can find my way in. So I'm walking around, and lo and behold, the school was pretty tight, except for one door in the back where they had deliveries made. Nobody was at the school yet. I pulled on the door, it opened. I stepped inside. I was in the school. I walked around taking video. I went to the principal's office and I sat down in the outer part of the office. And when the principal arrived, who are you? Oh, you're that lieutenant. How'd you get in here? Through your open door in the back. He didn't believe he had one. Delivery doors, that same principal. And again, he was arrogant, and arrogance is a problem. You have to be open to, hey, if I have a security gap, I want to find it and close it, right? So it's about 11 o'clock in the morning, and between two big parts of their high school, they had a like an alcove where they had maintenance vehicles and this and that. It was probably 25, 30 yards wide and 40 yards deep, and they got all these trucks and stuff in there. That's also where they made deliveries. And that truck would back down, they would ring a bell, somebody would answer the door, and they make a delivery. So I'm watching this, just sitting there watching, and I see this truck back down, it goes to the door. And I see the driver get out and he rings a bell. Blah, blah, blah. Employee comes out. They start talking like they know each other. They prop the door open. The guy takes a delivery of stuff out of the truck and they walk into the school. I'm looking. The door is still propped. I assumed somebody was standing there because, the school is locked up tight. And I walked down there with my camera on and I came around the end. There was nobody there. The door was wide open. I could see into the school. I could see kids walking around. So I just videotaped myself walking right in, went down by the lunchroom where all the kids were, and went down to the principal's office. And he says, what are you doing, Lieutenant? I'm videotaping. I'd like to show you this. And that's where the video ended. I showed it to him. Well, he had smoke coming out of his ears. He was very upset. He says, I can't believe that they left that door open and, whatever. I said, it happens, right? Security is breached when we become complacent or we don't think we have a gap. It's really a mindset. Now, if nothing has ever happened at your school, you've never had any violence, you've never had a problem, you and your staff and everyone else is going to be much more likely to not think about it because they say the most dangerous thing you can ever say. That'll never happen here. I bet they said that at Sandy Hook, Parkland, and all the other places that have been victimized. So safety and security means we have to be vigilant. We have to message safety and security. We can't be paranoid. We have to be aware and prepare, right? But penetration testing is a great idea to see if people can actually get in your building without your knowledge, right? Because if somebody doing it like that can do it, somebody who wants to hurt you can do it as well. All right. So that's the scoop here from Hope is Not a Tactic. We are to make our schools and our businesses and every place safe and secure by being aware and prepared. This is Lieutenant Joe. We will see you down the road.